Good morning, guys. Keith Angle here for TGI Sports Talk Sunday, stream of consciousness. Great to have you with me today. Sorry we got started a couple seconds late. Just jumping off the... Yeah, I lost one of my lights. Hold on one second, guys. Probably lost that one for good. Well, maybe we'll be able to survive without it. Oh, lost a light. Bear with me a second, guys. I'm going to jump off the camera here because my foot kicked the light. All right. We're back. I hope you didn't hear my comments off air there. Oh, God. Keith Angle again for TGI Sports Talk Sunday stream of consciousness. Sometimes things get a little screwy. I try to get this show started in 10 seconds after jumping off of the Mac and Jack show. And Jim Kifko today and Sonia with a big football Sunday show over there. Had a lot of fun discussing some topics today. I want to welcome everybody watching us on TGI Sports Talk on Facebook or YouTube. Everybody watching us on Northeast Streaming Sports on Facebook, YouTube, and also live on the Roku app, the Northeast Streaming Sports channel. Get that downloaded. Tons and tons of great content. And speaking of great content, we're also on Let's Talk Sports. And my best, speaking of Let's Talk Sports, great content over there. I heard yesterday that Rob Logan, one of the great contributors over there, and also instrumental in trying to get started a foundation, a charitable foundation in Dan Harris's name, which I've talked to him a lot about. Had a heart attack, a massive heart attack the other night. He's doing well, young guy, but he seems to be doing well. Had a triple bypass, and our prayers are with him and his family. I messaged his wife Nicole. And hopefully he will recover soon. My brother had the same heart attack about 3 years ago. Probably a bit older than Rob. He's a strong guy, young guy, seems to be in pretty good shape. So with any luck, he will recover. And our thoughts go out to our good friend Bill Slocum as well in Amsterdam as he recovers from his injuries from a tragic accident. He got hit by a car, as I mentioned here a week or so ago. So our prayers continue to go out to him. And of course, thumbs up to DDH as we do every show. So welcome, everybody. I'll get to your welcomes in a minute. This is going to be your show today. I got some topics we can talk about. The NFL, we can talk about possibly Gruden returning to we can talk about the NFL in general and the standings and the games yesterday. Gruden possibly returning to the Raiders is becoming a louder and louder rumor. Staley is out, as is the GM in L.A. with the Chargers, and Belichick continues to come in those conversations. And Belichick's situation in general, we can talk about. We can certainly talk about the new injury rules. How ridiculous! Where are we going to hit a guy? By the way, can't hit him high, can't hit him low, can't hit him in the hip. So just put your hands on him, 2-hand touch, and we're done. Unbelievable. Injuries all over the league, of course. We can look at all the games. Rodgers possibly playing. If the Jets win this week, which I don't like them to win, Rodgers is maybe cleared to play. So we'll talk about that. The Eagles security guy banned. So lots of football. In college football, general news, UAlbany's loss, unfortunately. We won't get into that a lot, but great season by UAlbany on the FCS level. They do it right playoff-wise. Maybe the NCAA will figure this out eventually. In baseball, we can talk about Soto, which I have some very strong opinions about the Soto trade to the Yankees. I guess you got to include the Verdugo trade there. Ohtani's deal. Is it subverting the salary cap by deferring $68 of $70 million? I don't see how they get away with this. Texas pitching issues. Scherzer out for half the season, at least until June, and then God knows when DeGrom's coming back. And there's a guy that signed with the San Francisco Giants back to the Yankees a little bit from Korea called named Lee, who I think would have been a much better fit. We can talk about all that. College basketball, Juwan Howard situation, back coaching again after another altercation within the program. He's on a zero tolerance warning from his last incident. And then the NBA, we can talk a little bit about the stuff going on out there. LeBron, his grand entrance during the anthem. The guy is tone deaf. He went to Bronny's first game and walked in during the national anthem. Anyway, we can talk about that. We can talk about the Spurs' first win in 6 games. The Pistons have lost 22 in a row. And then, of course, there's always Draymond Green news. So we can get into any and all of that today at your leisure, or any topics you guys have that you'd like to talk about. So, again, sorry for the rough start this morning. Good morning, Dave Guyette up there in Johnstown. Could have some questions about the Yankee situation. We'll be glad to get into that. CA, blessed Sunday to you. Blessed Sunday, NFL football day. I got a couple games I like. I didn't, looking at the card, I didn't like a lot of games. I got a winner yesterday in Detroit. I can actually pick up to 6 more games, and I'm not going to probably. There's 3 games I know I'm going to bet. We'll see what we do with that. Kenny Gifford, good morning. Sorry about that 75-pound crack. Kenny, I know you don't weigh 75 pounds. I was struggling for an answer there. Mac had me on the spot with that in the All-American team, which I haven't really researched a lot yet. I was saving that for my college football show, so he got me a little bit. Good morning, Rick Sherlock. Sorry about your loss yesterday. Fat Dom will be off the sidelines for the balance of the season, as he should be. Rick, I'm curious. When I saw you comment on this yesterday, I should say, I thought in the beginning, and I could be wrong, I thought you were happy with his actions. If you remember, he got into an altercation with a 49er player on the sideline. I thought he was a coach at the time. I didn't even know he was the head of security. But the head of security certainly shouldn't be jumping and getting into altercations. And I could be misremembering the whole situation, but I thought there were some comments that flew around in the heat of that exchange that was on the other side of this, which, again, I think, listen, this guy can't. He's the head of security. He's supposed to be keeping melees from happening, not causing them. And he got kind of pushed in the face, swung at, whatever you want to phrase it, and went back at the guy. Kenny Gifford's hoping Rodgers gets back and we can all laugh when he makes 5 plays this time. Listen, the Jets really, they're on the 8 number. As long as they don't lose any more games, they're in the playoff hunt. And thank you, Roger Goodall, that all these, 8, 7, and 18, all these, 5 and 7, 6 and 7, 7 and 8, all these teams are alive for the playoffs. Especially in the NFC. The AFC, at least as of yesterday, there's 3 8 and 6 teams making a wild card. So at least that makes me happy. I think Rodgers is crazy for trying to come back. This is a major injury. I've talked about it. I've had it. I'm not a professional athlete. And now I ruptured mine, which is different than tearing it, which does not mean you haven't completely snapped the ligament. So it's it's not a different surgery. It's basically the same surgery, but you still have a little bit of, the original. I doubt there's a little bit of the original ligament there. They suture it all up, so it's stronger than ever. But nobody's ever come back in this kind of time frame, and he's risking next year, possibly by coming back for probably fool's gold. We'll get into that some more if you like. I agree with you. Rick Setner. Rick, how did I get Rick Setner out of Rick Sherlock? Hope you're all right, Rick. Go get his job. Rick does some security work. Maybe Rick will have his retirement job as the head of security for the Eagles. Don't think he'd like that job. LeBron is just part of the thug. A thug is not. I wouldn't call LeBron a thug. He's not Draymond Green, right? He's not. And there aren't thugs in the NBA anymore. The game was much rougher in the 90s, if you remember. Being a Knicks fan and watching their games, Jesus. Like football out there. We talked about football, basketball, or whatever we called that sport one time. But there are some thugs, and we'll talk about Draymond if we need to. But LeBron just is clueless. That's his problem. The man's tone deaf. Make the comments he makes, in the political. I used to think this was a guy who got it. He did get it when he was younger. And then they get woke. Sorry to use that term. You probably won't like it, Kenny, and then they just think they're it. And to walk in like he did, like he was in a parade with his kids, great example he set with his younger kids, to Bronny's game during the playing of the national anthem. You could have stood off the court and waited and then sat down. Nobody was taking your seat, LeBron. Crazy crap, right? Rick does not want that job, I believe. Dave Guyette says he thinks Rodgers should just retire. I don't know that he's done. Listen, this is not an easy injury to come back, especially when you're a guy like Rodgers who moves around. Dan Marino came back. Was not a mobile guy to begin with, so I don't know that it affected him as much as it might affect a Rodgers. But even while he was good, he wasn't the player he was after. And for him to come back this year is crazy. Now, I don't think he's going to retire, Dave, unless he comes back and gets hurt again severely this year. You may see that, but he'll be back next year. He wants his $50 million. Kenny, I'm not sure they're telling the truth about Rodgers as far as what his health, his complete health. I believe the guy's ego. Well, there's two things here. I do think Rodgers is a competitor and wants to get back out there and maybe give this team some kind of hope. I mean, they got to beat the Miami today, and I don't see that's happening. If they don't beat Miami today, they're not making the playoffs. But I think there's a piece of Rodgers who only wants to come back so he can say, I came back. I'm the fastest guy ever to come back from this injury. See, my way is the best way. All this holistic nonsense. I shouldn't say nonsense. I mean, I believe in some of that myself, but all this holistic stuff that he goes through with, mushrooms and psychedelics and cave dwelling and whatever else, that's the way to go. You were on the D Green side with protecting his teammate. He has now lost my support with his latest stunt. Draymond? Yeah, listen. And by the way, I said this on the Are You Serious show, I think Friday. Gilbert Arenas, if you remember, who was a really good player in the NBA, but just a whack job. He was in the locker room with a loaded handgun, put it on a chair one day. Got suspended, I think, for a season or the remainder of a season. But he said that Draymond ought to go out there and beat up all the European guys. So, let's not have any. God, what do these guys even think about? But Draymond's part of this is, and he's not going to change. The NBA says he can't come back until he gets some counseling. He's not going to change. No matter how much counseling he gets. Right now, his skills have diminished, and the Warriors enabled this guy and his behavior for years when he was good and could help them win championships. He can't do that. You see flashes of it now, but he's not the player he was. Now he's just out there. He's an enforcer. He would have fit great on the Pistons in the 80s and the Knicks or Bulls in the 90s, but the game's different today, and people are different. They will not tolerate this type of thuggery, day in and day out. They can't believe Buffalo's favored over Dallas. I love Dallas today. That was my dog pick on the Mac and Jack and Jim and Sonia show, the football show. I don't know what to call that show anymore. I like Dallas a lot today. Buffalo's favorite only because they're at home. Remember, you're going to get 3 points of being at home. This should be a pick'em game at best. Buffalo's always got the possibility of winning. I know you're a Bills fan too, Dave. Be true to your school, dude. And the 3 points is kind of off reputation, and the fact that Dallas hasn't really beat a lot of good teams. They did beat the Eagles last week. Finally got that monkey off their back. Dallas is a different team this year. Much different team. We can get into that as much as possible or as much as needed today, too. People, and again, you got to win playoff games before you're going to completely get the monkey off your back. This team is a much different team than it's been in the past. McCarthy's changed the offense. They get the ball downfield more. They protect the quarterback. And they can run the football. And I like this Dallas team. Explain me woke. I don't need to explain. I'm not going to explain it here. I think you all know. I think you know what I mean. Woke to all the ridiculous nonsense that in your mind, and not your mind, Kenny, their mind, that this country is responsible for, whether it be individuals who we want to go back for things they said 60 years ago. I'll tell you a fact, and again, I don't want to get into politics, but I read an article yesterday, and there was a Harvard study done that more than 50% of people in 18 to 24 think Israel should go away, be done with, and just give the area to the Hamas. These are the people that will run this country, and rather than back their country and back their country's allies that have been there for decades, they'd rather turn it over to the terrorists that threaten our very existence. So those are the people that are going to run our country. Those are the woke people. And woke, how about a president who went around apologizing for everything we ever did? Basically go to Japan and apologize for dropping a bomb and ending an atrocious war and saving millions of lives. Anyway, we'll get into that at another time. Anyway, there you go. I wake up and I'm all woken up. You know what I'm talking about, and we won't get into a lot of that. Anyway, good morning, Anthony Price. It's a scary world we live in. Sorry. I pray to God, there's better people out there than those 50+% of people that Harvard talked to, by the way. Roger says that he's good. Let's see how good he is under pressure and getting hit. It is a little different. Standing behind your offensive line, not getting hit at all. He did move around the pocket, did some rollouts and stuff the other day. But again, that's a whole lot different, man. And he's a much more conditioned than I am as a person in general. Kenny made a comment yesterday. I was out having I only had 2 beers yesterday, by the way, for those who were worried about me being out drinking. Went out for a little bite to eat and went to see Christmas lights, and Kenny thought I was in training. I am in training. That was part of my training. Got to get ready for, cruising and whatnot. So, Raymond is going to go with Rodgers. Draymond, I think you mean, Kenny. Raymond would be an easier name, probably. Is going to go with Rodgers into the cave and drink some shroom juice. Oh, you know what? Maybe he should. Maybe he'd come out a calmer person. And, that reminds me, too, there's another topic we can talk about is Mahomes' meltdown on the sideline. People ripping Mahomes last week, by the way. Sorry, this is the stream of consciousness, right? People ripping Mahomes for being passionate about what he thought was a bad play. The guy came out the next day and apologized and said he's got to be better about that. He's an example for kids. You can't ask for better, a more taking responsibility for your actions than that. Good God. I can't believe the ire I heard from some people about that for a couple of days. Anyway, maybe Draymond could use some of that and chill out a little bit, Anthony, right? You think the Vikings need to go back to starting Dobbs? There's a good question for you, Rick. No, listen, I don't know. Right now, this team season is probably going nowhere. Are they in right now? Where are they? Let me get to the standings here. That's the schedule. Great. Anyway, got nowhere. I think right now they are out of the playoffs. 7-7. They're not way out, though. I mean, they're still on the. Actually, now that I look at it, I get all these 6 and 7 teams. There's a good chance. There's a decent chance the NFC will have at least one team with under 500 record in the playoffs. Maybe 2. No, I guess not too, because you already got the Eagles at 10-3, and the Vikings are 7 and in. I'll be honest, I didn't see a lot. I heard some of the comments Rick made. I didn't see Mullins play a lot yesterday. I've seen Dobbs playing, and I know Dobbs has been with 7 NFL teams. And listen, Mullins has been around as well. This team can put anybody in there, and they're going to need to play better, mistake-free football around the quarterback. And they got to put a quarterback in there who won't make mistakes himself and stay within the game plan, whichever guy that is. I think Nick Mullins is probably more likely to be able to do that than Dobbs. He likes to improvise, and you can see a lot of crap go wrong, which we did see in his last game or two. So I don't know. If I'm the coach, I'd probably stick with the veteran Mullen and hope for the best. Run the football. Hope my defense can stand up and get in the playoffs and get blown out in the first round. Anthony, and again, I'm not going to doubt Anthony on these things because Anthony has caught me a couple of times. Kyle McCord put himself in the transfer portal from Ohio State, and if you're part of this, why ain't that downgrading? I think you're talking about obviously McCord. Ryan Day made it pretty clear that every job was up for grabs, and there are some reports that he singled McCord out. McCord got better all year. He didn't play badly. Nebraska, I know, was heavily in here. If he's going to Syracuse, that's a coup for Syracuse, and it is a downgrade from Ohio State, definitely. But the reason he made himself available was, I think, that Day's going to hit the transfer portal, and Kyle McCord would not likely have a job, or at least not have a job guaranteed for him. He goes somewhere like Nebraska or Syracuse, and he probably will. And that'd be a coup for Syracuse and their new coach, to be sure. I haven't read that. In fact, I'm going to check right now. Again, I'm not doubting you, Anthony, because I've done that a couple times recently. And you turned out to be dead on correct. So kudos to you. I'm just trying to find my college football page here and see if there's any report of that thus far. I had the games up from yesterday to chat about. Kill, blah, blah, blah. I'm not seeing anything, but I'm not going to doubt you here. That would be a huge coup for Syracuse in my mind. Good catch. 7-7. Yeah, 7-7 are in. That tells you, again, I'm talking about the playoff picture. At least in the AFC, I got a bunch of 8-6 teams that right now would be in. 8-5, the Browns, if they lose, they'd be 8-6. The Bengals are in at 8-6. Who else? There was somebody else I thought 8-6 would be in. Guess not. Maybe it's the Colts. Yeah, 8-6. But outside in the National Football Conference, all you got is the Eagles at 10-3 or the Cowboys, however you want to look at that. The loser of that division would get in easily. And Minnesota's the next best record at 7-7. Nothing guarantees they're going to finish over 500. I mean, maybe some of these teams are probably playing each other, so somebody's got to finish over 500. But I mean, theoretically, you could have two teams under 500, and this is what Roger Goodell has. That's what he's brought upon the NFL. We're going to talk more about this injury nonsense. The NFL has gotten so watered down with too many playoff teams. Bad football because, again, and that's not Roger Goodell's fault. The quarterbacks are getting paid $50 million a year, and I'm a proponent that you should deserve. If somebody wants to pay you, you deserve it. But you're not smart paying all your money to a quarterback when you can't have an offensive line to protect him or guys to catch the football. And now Roger Goodell's going to put in another rule to say you can't hit a guy in the hip area. Where am I supposed to tackle a guy? I can't hit him from here up. I can't hit him from basically the waist down or the knees down. So I've got an area this big on his thighs, and I got an area this big at his chest area, and that's all I got. two-hand touch is on the way. He's ruining the game. No matter what you think about the NFL, the violence is something that attracts a huge part of the audience. It's a violent game. The players know that. The players are well compensated for that. And he wants to legislate all the violence out of the game. Kickoffs. And then the penalties, again, are just off the freaking wall. I can barely watch games. Some of them are just a flag fest. Mullins couldn't play on a high school team. You know, he didn't play on a bad San Francisco team. I guess he did. They were bad. But what about Dobbs? Dobbs was playing on 7 teams. He's been through, a quarter of the NFL. The answer is they need a quarterback, obviously. And it's funny how everybody loved Dobbs the first 2 days, 2 games there. He didn't know the plays. He didn't know the playbook. He just went out there and improvised, and they won. And they said, well, we probably don't need Kirk Cousins. We'll build around this guy. Fans are so fickle. I didn't think Dobbs was that good to begin with. If he was that good, is he going to be available in freaking December or November, whenever he got there, late November? Day's job is up for grabs. He won't lose his job this year unless he leaves. And I've talked about this on the Robert Butler show, the Sports Scope, Thursday night, that I think, depending on what happens in the NFL with coaching changes, I think Ryan Day's next job is on the next level. And I think that Ryan Day, I think it's quite possible he could be gone to the NFL. I thought he might go last year. I think the Browns would be a good fit for him. Their job probably will not come open this year, just like it didn't last year. And he may stick it out. But I would fully expect for Ryan Day to get out ahead of the posse. You can win every game at Ohio State. If you don't beat Michigan, it's not going to matter. John Cooper won about 90% of his games, 85% of his games, whatever, at Ohio State when he was there for 9 years. Before Jim Tressel. And in between Earl Bruce, maybe, who immediately succeeded Woody Hayes. But he was 7-1, I want to say, against Michigan. You'll get fired every time. Same way at Michigan. Harbaugh's job was in trouble a few years ago because he didn't beat Ohio State. He couldn't beat Ohio State. That's changed. Sorry, my nose is really itchy this morning. CA says Dobbs can't make the throws Mullins can. You got to be able to make the simple throws, right? Again, I'm not saying Mullins has any great shakes, to Kenny's point. But I think if you want to go out, if you're going to have a guy go out there and play within himself, play within the game plan, and make simple, accurate throws. Dobbs isn't accurate. He'll make spectacular plays, running around, throwing the football, but that's not necessarily conducive to being consistently winning in the NFL. So again, to CA's point, I do think he can make throws. Can't make the throws Mullins can, but then there's plays that Dobbs can make that Mullins could not make. So there's two sides to this. And he can't make the ones Kirk could. I don't think either one of these guys can make the throws Kirk Cousins could. Listen, Kirk Cousins has taken a lot of abuse, including here, for his inability to win big games. But Kirk Cousins is a much better quarterback than either one of these guys. He's head and shoulders above either one of these guys. So good points there. Vikings are 6 in the playoffs right now. Yes, when I commented, I'd forgotten how bad, and I'm sorry. This is what another thing, I guess, as I said, this is another thing that Roger Goodell and the NFL has wanted for years is parity. Well, this is what parity looks like, especially in the NFC. It's there in the AFC as well, but it's even more so when you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 teams at either 7-7 or 6-7. And another team at 5-8 who's really not out of it yet. I mean, in either league, if you've got 8 losses, you're still alive. That's why the Jets aren't dead. The Titans aren't dead. The Raiders aren't dead. I mean, some guys probably think this is great. I think there's just, I mean, a lot of bad football again yesterday. The only team that looked good to me, and then, listen, the Bengals did well. The Bengals have played really well and inspired football after losing their leader to a season-ending injury. And Jake Browning has played great football. And this team very well may make a playoff. They're in the playoffs now. But still a lot of bad football. That wasn't a great game. Colts game wasn't a great game. The Lions look good. It wasn't a good football game. And before you get excited about the Lions, I said this briefly on the Mac and Jack and Jim and Sonia show. I don't know how much this game said about the Lions last night and how much it said about the Broncos. Sorry, Bronco fans, and Tom Day, if you're watching this morning as you did last week, thanks for tuning in, Tom and Linda. Your team's not that good. You won 6 out of 7, and you lost to the only good team you played in that stretch, the Ravens. I can't pick out another good team that you beat in that 6 or that 7 game stretch. So you played now in an 8 game stretch, you played 2 good teams and you lost to both of them. It's not that good a football team. And that was an embarrassing loss last night. Minshew. Gardner Minshew, who's the quarterback for the Colts and has been. This is really Gardner Minshew's first chance to really be a full-time quarterback. He's come in and played in stretches with other teams, the Eagles and Jacksonville. Might have had a shot in Jacksonville for a while, but to play basically a full season, Richardson got hurt early in the season, as you remember. He's played well. He's got this team 8-6. The defense is good. They run the ball well. It could be a surprise team come playoff time. So if Minshew is due, but I'm not a big fan. And I don't know if he's still wearing the Fu Manchu or the, but he's a character. And he'll be playing pickleball with me, not the old women. It's funny. Pickleball has actually been stolen from the old people by the young people. Unbelievable, right? They accuse us of stealing stuff from them. Nope, my Vikings. They played Detroit 2 times in 3 games. Oh, nope, for your Vikings. So you're saying the Vikings will be out? Listen, I'm not. Detroit played great last night. And Detroit, their defense played well. Goff, though, you either see Goff throw 5 touchdowns like he did last night or 4 touchdowns. So he throw 5 touchdowns. Or he turns the ball over 17 times or 11 times in 5 games or whatever he did. Maybe it was more than that. I mean, I feel like he had a bunch of interceptions and a bunch of fumbles in the last 7 games. Huge numbers. So if you're going to get that Goff, you could beat this team twice, Rick. But again, you got to have better quarterback play than you had yesterday. Teams are in, and the offense I know has been atrocious. So they went 3-0 last week. CA, the teams are making a run at the Super Bowl with the likes of Dobbs, Mullins, Browning. I would put Browning a step ahead of those other 2 guys, by the way. He's played really good football. And Kenny mentioned earlier again on the Mac and Jack and Jim and Sonia show. I got to call it something else. That, and again, I probably misinterpreted Kenny's question. I read it to mean that, he could possibly beat out Joe Burrow. Can't. Joe Burrow's a quarterback there. But if Kenny was referring to the fact that Jake Browning couldn't be a starting quarterback in this league, based on what I've seen, again, a very small window or a very small sample size is a better term. he looks good, and he could possibly, if he finishes out strong, either the Bengals keep him to be a backup to Burrow, who's had some injury issues, obviously, in his career. But you don't have two starting quarterbacks, or they trade him. I don't know what his contract situation is. And if he's a free agent, he'll get himself a nice contract because people are dying. Half the league is looking for a quarterback. And dozens, I said this on the show, I've seen dozens and dozens of examples of guys who have had runs like this, gotten paid, and and then not been what they expected. Ryan Fitzpatrick is the poster child for this. I'm trying to think of some other guys that have had these types of runs. Rams had a bunch of guys for a while. I know there's more. It's amazing not one guy can come to mind, right? But they step in, do well, and they get a big contract and can't handle the number one spot. So, but I take nothing away from Jake Browning. He's done a great job of not only keeping this Bengals team afloat, but winning 3 games in a row and putting them in a position to make the playoffs. Great job. That makes the Super Bowl. Hold on, was there more to this? And the rest of the current backups are playing. Not one will play in a Super Bowl unless they're on a team that makes the Super Bowl and the starter goes down. Well, the starter's already gone down on those teams, actually. I mean, the starter for the teams you mentioned, no, none of those guys are going to the Super Bowl. They're not good enough to lead their teams to the Super Bowl. Although, in Browning's case, the team around him is really good. I think that's the best team of the guys who are leading backup quarter. Well, we talk about that. There's 2 teams we're talking about here. I think the Bengals are appreciably better than the Bengals and better equipped to handle playing without their starting quarterback than the Vikings. Sorry about that, Rick, but I think it shows out. Bengals have beat some decent teams, and the Vikings are struggling just to score points. And yes, if a concurrent starter on one of the Super Bowl contenders goes down, then you might have a backup plan. We'll do the future Pittsburgh. I'm not sure what that getting to above 500 would depend if the small hands come back this season. If small hands, I guess we're talking about Pickett. I'm not sure who we're talking about there. I guess we're talking about Pickett, but if you're relying on him, the Steelers are 7-7. There's a lot of heat on Mike Tomlin. Mike Tomlin is a really good football coach. We talked about this morning. Mike Tomlin's not getting fired. Pittsburgh doesn't fire coaches. They haven't fired a coach in 54 years. Now, that doesn't mean he'll be the coach next year. Mike Tomlin may have had enough, and they may have a mutual parting of the ways. And Mike Tomlin, if he wants it, will have a job next year in the NFL. Mike Tomlin's a good football coach. He's won a Super Bowl. He's had other Super Bowl contenders. He's been very consistent in his career. But the Steeler team, and that's not all his fault. He's not one of the guys who's out there shopping for the groceries. They give him some input, I'm sure. But you can't, I'm sorry, you can't expect to win games in the NFL with Kenny Pickett and Mike Trubisky. Or Mitchell Trubisky. What's his name? Mitch Trubisky. And they have no identity, this Pittsburgh team. They're just, I mean, it used to be ground and pound was kind of where you thought they'd be going here, but their running game has been non-existent. So it's ugly in Pittsburgh right now, and I feel a little bad for Mike Tomlin. I'm sure there are guys out there that don't like Mike Tomlin. Mike Tomlin is a very consistent and a very good NFL football coach. Kenny, what time did you start today? Greasy, I think. I'm starting to speak, Kenny. You did spell Bradshaw right here. The rest, no shot. Greasy took his team to the Super. Greasy got hurt during their undefeated season. Earl Morrall led them to the playoffs, and Greasy started all through the playoffs. So Morrall didn't play, I don't believe, a single down in the playoffs in that undefeated season. He did play an instrumental part in them making the playoffs and going undefeated for sure. Rick commented, by the way, on this little, I got to point to the right part of the screen, this little pixelation here, and it kind of gets worse. It's got to do with, I got a light I have to adjust, and I thought I had it right Friday. Just driving me nuts. So I apologize for that. Probably drive you guys nuts that I pointed out. So anyway, Greasy played every playoff game in that year. But, yes, you have to have a good quarterback to stay afloat. But he didn't win. He didn't play in the playoffs or the Super Bowl. I'm not sure if that's where you're alluding to, Kenny, or not. Bradshaw and Hanratty. Hanratty hardly ever played. Again, early in his career, Chuck Noll wanted to replace Bradshaw with anybody he could. Hanratty, Joe Gillum. If you remember, Joe Gillum had a great start to his season. I think they went 4-1-1, then he fell apart. And then, unfortunately, the guy had a lot of problems. But Bradshaw always won the job back, and Bradshaw, I believe, played pretty much every playoff game Pittsburgh ever was in during that era. So, Terry Hanratty from Notre Dame, which is where Kenny probably gets that from. Again, he didn't play a lot. One of the guys been trying to get on interviews. I'll get back there someday, Rick. Right, not right now. Maybe when I retire, because it's just too much work. But one of the guys that I was trying to track down to get on to an interview, because I find he's had some interesting things to say. Good backup quarterback, but he never really was instrumental in I don't think, in Pittsburgh winning Super Bowls. Don't worry about it, Kenny. I've learned. Well, first of all, my spelling sucks as well, as does my pronunciation. Rick, Drew's not with us again today, but that's why I have a speech coach while I'm here. But I'm starting to, speak, Kenny. Flacco played well. Funny, I saw an interview with him. He doesn't even know what he's making. He said he hasn't looked at his bank account. He doesn't know how much he's making. I'm guessing the NFL minimum. It'll be can Cleveland. But again, is Cleveland really a Super Bowl contender with a quarterback like Flacco or Walker or Thompson behind center? They're going to make the playoffs most likely. Another team with a great defense. But they're lacking their quarterback. Their number one running back has been out much of the season, and Chubb. Good job. I like them today a lot, which means they'll lose. Anthony says, what if only if Mike Tomlin leaves Pittsburgh for a new change and goes to Washington next year? Yeah, I'm not saying he won't leave. I'm just saying he won't get fired. I think Mike Tomlin may be as tired of Pittsburgh as the Pittsburgh fans seem to be of him right now. Mike Tomlin's a good football coach. He will, if he wants to coach, he will coach. And I think Washington would be a great fit for Mike Tomlin. I really do. Maybe the Raiders would be a great fit for Mike Tomlin. Mike Tomlin. And again, when I talk about Pittsburgh lacking identity, I struggle with the fact, is this, front office's fault, Mike Tomlin's fault? I don't know. He's been a good football coach. Has he done the best job this year? With the talent that he has on that team, I think he has. Kenny says, I'm just saying that to see Browning staying in Cincinnati. It's a good gig. Yeah, well, again, he can stay there, but now we've seen him play. Cincinnati's going to, if he plays this well all the way out, And Cincinnati has control over him. With a number of guys that want quarterbacks, they will probably be able to get a decent return for him if he were to play this way through the remainder of the season, because he's not going to be their quarterback, and his gig in Cincinnati would be, holding clipboard and waiting for Joe Burrow to get hurt, which might be a better alternative for Cincinnati than trading him. If you're not going to get, first round draft picks for him, I don't think. And they might be better off keeping him because of Burrow's injury history. Flacco won a Super Bowl with a great defense. He did. And Flacco, to his credit, had a great year that year. Flacco's had some good years in the NFL. And Flacco might have won more Super Bowls if it wasn't for running into the Patriots year after year. But he's not, again, he also, by the way, he was also like 10 years younger then, right, Kenny? Maybe not 10, but I mean, that was, I'm trying to think what year that was. And I think you always tell me that the other side would have won if the lights didn't go out. The NFL turned the lights out to get things back in the right direction. Mark Rabbitshaw, good morning, Mark. Good to see you last week. Mark stopped into Creekside. We'll give Creekside Tavern a little shout out in Amsterdam. Check them out. Some great tavern food and friendly atmosphere where we go watch some NFL games on Sundays. I'll be up there later. Mark stopped in for a bit late last Sunday. Sorry, couldn't stay longer, but it was my expiration time had come. Flacco's earning $75,000 per game plus incentives. I'm impressed with his play. He's played well. Again, you get a veteran surrounded by a little bit of talent. I'm not crazy about Cleveland's offensive talent, but Stefanski's a good play caller. But with that defense, you just got to keep him in a game, manage a game, don't make mistakes that will lose. And you get a veteran like Flacco, and he can help them. But again, once you get in the playoffs, it's very hard to win without. And by the way, some of the guys we talked about already, we're talking about a game changed a lot since we talked about those games. The worst quarterback, the only guy I can think of that would be on the level of where Flacco is today. And I'm not saying Flacco wasn't better than this guy throughout the duration of his career, but I'm talking about today. The only quarterback that I can think of that was worse, that won a Super Bowl, would be Trent Dilfer. And Trent Dilfer played, he didn't need it. He did his job perfectly, which was to go out, not make mistakes and lose the game and let the defense put them in a position to make some big plays. And he had a guy who ran for 2,000 yards or 2,100 yards, whatever it was that year in Lewis. I can't think of another quarterback right off the top of my head that might have been worse. And if Joe Flacco were to take the Browns to the Super Bowl and win, which I don't think he can, that would be, I think, on par with that. Anthony, active today. Good to see that, Anthony, because you got some good stuff to bring to the table, especially breaking news in college football. Thank you for that. The way Brock Purdy is playing, would you give him a new contract now before the price goes up? I would. He might win the MVP this year. It's going to be him or Mahomes or Hurts. Might be Hill. Could be Tua. But Purdy's probably the top three right now if he doesn't get hurt. And he plays much better, obviously, and as anybody would when all his weapons are healthy, right? But he's a guy that I would lock up now. If I can save some money now, problem is the price tag for quarterbacks, top-notch quarterbacks, and Purdy's reached that level. It's gone up extremely. You're talking $40 or $50 million a year now, and that hurts the rest of your team. Teams are going to struggle with this and how to figure this out. cap-wise and how to make the rest of your team not fall to pieces. We've seen a lot of it around the league. But I like Purdy. I still think his arm's not quite right, and maybe the 49ers feel the same way. There are a lot of balls I see, man, that look like ducks go up there. Somebody finds a way to catch a lot of them. But he's a great competitor. I love his makeup. There's nothing not to like about Brock Purdy. If he starts winning, people will hate him because that's what happens, right? This is the world we live in today. We build guys up so we can knock them down. We love Tom Brady when he came out of nowhere, and he was a great story replacing Drew Bledsoe, led him to a Super Bowl. But then when he started winning every year, we hated him. Oh, he's a jerk. He's this, he's that. And he did nothing to earn that reputation other than be a fiery competitor. And he's one of the guys that when you watch sports, that's who you ought to be trying to emulate. Teach your kids to be like Tom Brady or Derek Jeter or Patrick Mahomes, right? Wait till Purdy, if Purdy reaches that level, he's got a ways to go. Mahomes is the new Brady now. We want to knock him for everything that we don't like about him. We want to knock him when he goes off on a tantrum at the end of that game and a very emotional. Who wouldn't be emotional? If you weren't emotional about that play coming back at that time, you really ought to be looking for another job. And again, he takes great responsibility the next day and shows why he should be a role model for people because he took responsibility for his actions and said, I have no business reacting that way. Kids look up to me. Kids are going to see that and it's going to affect them. And again, we love those guys. We love those. And I'm not saying Purdy's like this, but we'll find a reason to hate Purdy. Once he wins a couple Super Bowls, because that's just what we do. We look to rip guys, turn them, build them up, tear them down. The guys we should be rooting for, we find a way to tear down. In leagues full of thugs, you talk about thugs, Kenny. The real thugs are in the NFL. And the NBA. I'm not excusing the NBA, but the NFL is full of bad acts, murderers, wife beaters, woman abusers, serial woman abusers that get huge contracts to play for the Cleveland Browns. Guys just carrying loaded weapons wherever they go, driving like they're. Don't get me going. But the guys who do the right things, no, let's not, it's awful. Tomlin's not an offensive-minded enough coach in Pittsburgh because they are defensive-minded. Well, they always have been. Even when they were winning Super Bowls, right, in the 70s, or under Bill Cowher. They were defensive-minded, and they put some good offenses out on the field. Remember, they had Ben Roethlisberger. They had Terry Bradshaw. Somehow they won with Neil, or almost won with Neil. It was Roethlisberger when they won for Coach Cowher before he left. Just always been a defensive-minded organization. So it's not just on Tomlin. That doesn't mean, by the way, that's a bad thing because you need smart defensive guys in this league today because all the rules are being changed, just like they are in every sport, to benefit the offenses. Right? Because we have the ESPN syndrome throughout sports where we've got to have these magnificent offensive numbers and games and highlights. And it's the video game syndrome. It will turn around, by the way. And great defenses will win out. I mean, one reason, again, here's the difference. Here's why Bill Belichick is still the coach of the Patriots and Staley gets fired and other guys get fit. And there's other teams I see right now where I talked about interim coaches. I don't like firing guys in the middle of the season because the interim has any success. Now you're in a bad position. If you get rid of them and the next guy fails, like the special teams coach out in with the Raiders a few years back. I'm trying to think his name, Siachi. You run the risk of getting the ire of the fans. They want to keep that guy because they like him. Antonio Pierce is doing well right now. Doesn't mean he's the right choice for the long term. And often, you can be skewed either way with a small sample size to say he's either going to be a great coach or he's going to stink. That's why I'm not a big fan of interim coaches. But you can see that teams don't quit. Look at the Patriots. As bad as this season has been, the team has not quit. The offense has looked atrocious at times, but not because they quit. Because bad. The guys just aren't that good. The game planning is not that good. The defense has been exceptional without two of their best players for the majority of the season. They haven't quit. Bill Belichick, this game has not passed Bill Belichick by. Bill Belichick has not lost his locker room. But Bill Belichick may very well be in San Diego next year or somewhere else. He may not have his choice. It's going to be very interesting to see what happens. He may be back. We still don't know. Read all the reports you want, all the conjecture you want. Tom Curran from NBC keeps reporting bad news. Him and John Hyman here in New York are famous for reporting stuff that never happens. But I don't doubt this team is very likely to part ways with Bill Belichick. It depends on how it goes. Now, Bill Belichick is under contract for next year, so he can't just walk away and go wherever he wants. That team will have to pay compensation to the Patriots. And I guarantee you Bob Kraft is going to go after that. If he doesn't want to coach, then he can walk away and wait a year and get paid. Now, that'll probably end up in court, too, saying the Patriots still hold his rights. We'll see. Depends on whether they pay him or not. So there are a lot of ways this could go, and Belichick could make it tough on the way out. There's a lot of talk about this will be an acrimonious parting, which is sad. But, part of me wants him to stay. I don't want to see this era end. Chris B's nobody circles the wagon. Chris Berman's always said circles the wagons like the Buffalo Bills. Well, they circled the wagons. Was it last week? Who did they play last week? They won last week, right? Yeah, they won last week after everybody had written them off. By the way, not a stirring victory. Nice win over the Chiefs. Don't get beat by the refs, Chiefs. Sorry. Cedric what's his name? Tony. I can't think of his first name now. The refs say they told him to back up. That's what usually happens on this play, by the way, where he's lined up off sides. It happens a lot in the NFL. And you see a ref, he'll look down the line and a ref will tell him to back up. Refs say they told him to back up. He says they didn't. And he also lined up like 5 other times that game in the same place. I'm not saying they shouldn't be called. Don't let the referees beat you. I keep saying that. You forgot he needs a head coach and a new defensive coordinator this offseason. We need help. You need help. You're going to have a whole new staff probably, Anthony. I mean, Eric Bieniemy may get a job, and maybe the new head coach keeps Eric Bieniemy. The offense has shown flashes this year. I think Sam Howell has shown enough to show he could have a future in this league with the right coordinator. Again, that's been a rumored spot for Belichick as well. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, the trade rumors were with Washington, the team formerly known as the Redskins. This team could bounce back quickly. They've got the resources. Cousins, Prescott, a few other quarterbacks, role models of the NFL. I agree. I mean, if you watch, I say this a lot. And by the way, there's no reason to think Mahomes isn't either. Mahomes is a guy kids should emulate. There's no reason not to like Mahomes. Probably no reason not to like Josh Allen. And those are just a couple guys that come to mind. I'm sure there's others. But I got a whole new perspective for Kirk Cousins, the person and a teammate, when I watched Quarterback on Netflix. And again, if you haven't watched it, it covered 3 quarterbacks. And you go in there and watch a difference between Cousins and Mahomes. And by the way, you watch this, you will get a really great respect for Mahomes as well, to see the training that he puts himself through to be able to make some of the weird plays that he makes. These throws from all angles and contorted. He actually puts himself through a workout routine that allows him to be able to make those plays. It's very interesting stuff. So if you have Netflix and you haven't watched it, please watch it. It's great. It's a great mini series, if you will. I think there was, 6 episodes or whatever. But you'll get a great appreciation for both of those guys, I think. And on the other side, the flip side, you're going to get a bad appreciation for Marcus Mariota and the way he quit on his team. Would the Giants fire Dabo to get Belichick? I think not, Neil. I'm not so sure that Belichick wants to come back here to New York. I don't think he wants to coach someplace where, again, he probably, even though it's decades since he's been there, being again in the shadow of Bill Parcells in a way. Maybe part of him would like to go there and win. He does have a franchise quarterback, and I think that's going to be important for if he decides he wants to coach. And I think he will, because first of all, I don't think the fire's gone. And second of all, I think he wants that wins record, which I think he's 16 away, 17 from going ahead, if I have the numbers right in my head. He's going to want to go someplace with a franchise quarterback, and I do think the Giants have that. And not Danny DeVito either. But first of all, I think Dabo is not getting fired. That team is another team, by the way, that I think has shown some fight. They've won a couple in a row, right? Am I right there, Neil? Won 3 in a row. So again, the team hasn't quit on its coach. They've rallied behind Tommy DeVito. And which member of the Sopranos is that? That's his agent, by the way. I'll offend another group of people. So I think there's zero chance Brian Dabo gets fired. Nor should he, in my mind. Oh, you guys are doing great today. Kenny, Patriots need a solid quarterback and not some kid. Well, there are no solid quarterbacks available that they can bring in here. So they got only a couple choices, Kenny. You get a whole new staff, and you hope to rehabilitate Mac Jones, who the current staff is wrecked. I mean, Mac Jones has to take responsibility for his own failures, but this coaching staff did him no favors, did not put him in the best position to succeed. So there's a chance, if there's a turnover in the coaching staff, Mac Jones gets another opportunity. But I'd bring a veteran in case that were to fail. I'm not a big fan of Bailey Zappi. I just don't think he's the guy. As far as veterans, there's really not going to be anybody other than, say, a Josh Fields, Kyler Murray. I like Josh. I keep saying Josh. Justin Fields. If the Bears fall in love with Caleb Williams, let's say, and take him number 1, they're going to look to move Justin Fields. Patriots could do worse than to find a way to get Justin Fields to be their quarterback for the future, keep themselves in a position in the draft to draft Marvin Harrison Jr. if he enters the draft. Still some question mark about that. Rumors said he's been offered a lot of money to stay at Ohio State. Yes, think about that. Been offered a lot of money to stay in college. I think the Patriots could do worse than rebuild that way. Or you could just keep your spot wherever it is in the draft and take your shot with maybe they'd be in a position to draft Drake May, who I think is the best quarterback coming out. But you'd be starting over. And there's no great quarterback that's going to be available. Right? They're not even a solid. Kenny, I can't think of a solid quarterback that would be available in the offseason because there's so many teams looking for quarterbacks. And solid ones just aren't available. And don't tell me Jake Browning, because I would hope we're not stupid enough to buy into that and overpay for a guy like that. Might be great. Don't get me wrong, but that's not the direction I would go. I would go the Justin Fields route. That's how I would go. But you're right. Look, nobody wins without solid quarterback play. Bills win today just because of one thing, Dak. I know you don't like Dak, Kenny, but I will tell you this. Dak may play his own way into the MVP conversation. The Cowboys are a different team right now. And again, I understand it's a regular season, and when the playoffs start, things are different. But they've changed that offense. Dak is able to throw the ball down the field more, and he's thrown the ball down the field very, very well. He's made smart decisions. And I'll tell you this, I don't think no matter what happens that Dak Prescott or Mike McCarthy is leaving Dallas anytime soon. This team, unless they just implode in the playoffs, but this team is as good as any in football. I think the Niners, they beat the Eagles finally, got that monkey off their back. They've won 5 in a row. Now they got to win. They got to finish the season strong with momentum going into the playoffs and win some playoff games. Not one, but multiple. Get to the NFC Championship game, if not the Super Bowl. Do I think they're as good as the 49ers when the 49ers are totally healthy? Maybe not as complete a team, but I like Pollard. I like the players around Lamb and the way that they've redesigned this offense. I like Ferguson's potential at tight end. Obviously, CeeDee Lamb is a great player. Michael Gallup has kind of had a rebirth in this offense. I just like what they bring to the field. The defense is better. Listen, I think they have the best point differential in the NFL, if I'm not mistaken. They do. The only one even close is the 49ers. The Eagles at 10-3 only have a plus 21 point differential. Now, they haven't fared well against the 49ers in the past either. So I know you don't like Dak, and I'm not going to change your mind, and I'm not trying to. Listen, I could say the Cowboys are going to win for one reason, and that's, Josh Allen. I just think the Cowboys are a better, deeper, more solid team than the Bills. Big win last week for the Bills, but part of it was gifted to them. Chiefs did not play well. But again, they went and won at a tough place to win. So credit to them. So I'm saying if Bill take a year off and then comes back, we're going to have another Sean Payton trade with Bill. That's possible, yes. If they retain his rights. That's what happens when guys walk away with time left on their contract. And again, they'll probably, I do believe the Sean Payton situation went to the league to see if they retained rights, right? And there'll be some kind of court battle probably. But is Bill going to sit out a year at 71, 72 years old, Anthony? He wants to chase down his win record. It's going to take at least 2 seasons to do it. At least. I think if he leaves, he's going to want to coach next year, which means there will be compensation involved. There's no way Bob Kraft is letting him walk away for nothing, which is his want. It's his right to do. Prescott sucks. He doesn't suck. I mean, you can say a lot of things, Kenny. And you can talk about his decision-making in big spots, especially in the playoffs. You can talk about a lot of things with Dak Prescott. I don't think you can say he sucks. He's got 4 games to go here. He's, let's see, where is he? And I know it's not all about numbers, but the record is there as well. They've won 5 in a row. They're 10-3. They beat a team that's been their arch nemesis that they haven't been able to beat in the Eagles last week. He's thrown 28 touchdowns with 6 interceptions. Those are Tom Brady numbers. 3,500 yards with 4 to go. He's probably going to throw for close to 5,000 yards, 4,500 at least. And his quarterback rating's 107. Has been sacked 29 times. That's better protection he's had in some years. That's what you got to look at is the turnovers. This guy's a complete player now, this year anyway. So again, we can't say he sucks. You can tell me he makes bad decisions in the playoffs and in big games. And I'll say historically you're right. He can change that narrative though by winning. I've been hard on Dak. Listen, I've been hard on Dak too. But there are times when you just got to kind of turn the page and say, this is a little different player and a little different approach to the game than we've seen in the past. 28-6, that's Tom Brady type numbers. Just saying. Now, he doesn't have 6 rings or any. Never thought I'd find myself in a position of defending Dak Prescott. Oh, John DeLonzo here with us. Oh, NFL talk. When do we get to? We don't talk Taylor Swift on this show, by the way. You're on the wrong show, John. If you want, and by the way, John, we can talk about college football. I don't have a lot to chat about. I was going to get into some of the games, but with doing the show Wednesday and by the way, next week's college football, John, just so you know, John, next week's college football huddle will not be on Wednesday. I have a Christmas gathering to get to. It will be live in the 9 a.m. Roku slot. It'll be on all the different outlets, Facebook, YouTube. It'll be live Saturday morning at 9 a.m. But you got some college you want to bring up today? Go ahead. This is a stream of consciousness. We're talking about everything, and the NFL is kind of dominated today. Daniel Jones is a franchise quarterback. When you're paying your guy $40 million, he's a franchise quarterback. And again, Chad, welcome, Chad, by the way. Chad has certainly been following the college football huddle closely recently. We appreciate you coming on today. Though I don't remember, Chad, who your NFL team is. Might be Carolina. I could be wrong. Could be Tennessee. I could be wrong there, too. But Daniel Jones showed last year, and the Giants rewarded him as their franchise quarterback. Is he good enough to win? Absolutely. Give him some weapons. And the guy, before he got hurt this year, had improved every single year of his career. Every single year. Go back and look at the numbers. They speak for themselves. The Giants made their first playoff with Daniel Jones as their quarterback in, 5 or 6 years. So, yes, Daniel Jones is a franchise quarterback, especially when I compare him to the rest of the quarterbacks around the league who are not named Mahomes, who are not named Hurts, who are not named even Allen. But he compares very favorably with over half of this league. I mean, I can say I'll go through this again if I have to. Who's better than him? Tua's better than him right now. Allen's better than him. Not the Jets, not the Patriots. Well, if you want to count the Jets and Aaron Rodgers, I'm not willing to count him. Too many unknowns. I don't know what he's got left, and he's missed a whole year. He's going to be 41 years old next year. Not counting him. I'll give you Lamar Jackson. I'll give you Joe Burrow. I'll give you Lawrence. I'm not giving you C.J. Stroud yet. His numbers are like Daniel Jones' numbers last year. I'm not even giving you Titans. I love Will Levis. I can't give you the Titans. I'll give you Dak. I'll give you Hurts. Not counting Goff. Goff is too up and down. Cousins? Question mark. Jordan Love, I might put on that list right now. Bucks, no. Falcons, no. Saints, no. Carolina, no. Purdy, okay, there's 8. Stafford, backside of his career. Geno, one good year last year. Arizona, I just counted 8 quarterbacks better than Daniel Jones in this league. I could give you a couple more that I eliminated, like Rodgers. At worst, he's in the top 10. Top 11. Saying. Today's wife's Christmas cookie bake day. My wife did hers last week while I was away on work, so she got all that out of the way, and I have stolen a bunch of them frozen out of the fridge, which I got in trouble for yesterday. I like Uncle Rico for the quarterback of the page. Uncle Rico. Mark, I'm not sure Uncle Rico is. I'm laughing. What do you got, Neil? Drake May is very accurate. Van Dyke's not coming out. Van Dyke has transferred to Wisconsin. He'll be the and I like Van Dyke possibility. He needs to clean up the turnovers and such. But Van Dyke's got the size. He's got the mobility. He needs to clean up his accuracy and forcing plays. But that can come, as Neil says, with the right mentor. That's not happening this year, though, because he's not coming out. He's going to Wisconsin. Boy, we got a lot of comments. You guys are fire today. Cowboys win today. I'm with Neil. I think he's a Cowboy fan. I am not. I'm a fan of my money, and I like the Cowboys a lot. My bets, by the way, we'll get to the games. Miami, the Browns, the Packers, and the Cowboys all to cover today. Here we go. I'm not sure what that is. Jameis Winston might be. No. Maybe bring him in. If I keep Mac Jones, I bring in a Jameis Winston or somebody to push him a little bit. Jameis Winston is not a guy I want leading my team. Too many interceptions. I mean, he had one good half season with the Saints before he got hurt under Sean Payton. I don't think Jameis Winston is a steal for anybody. Maybe as a insurance policy in training camp if I bring Mac Jones back. Or maybe even if I draft a quarterback, maybe. Here we go. I don't know what that is, but that's fine. Not sure what that is. Dallas is Dallas. That's all I need to say. Again, up until now, you would be correct, Kenny. I've said many of the same things over the past several seasons, right? I have, in watching the games, the eye test, which I talk about a lot in sports, there just is a different feel to this team than I've seen in the past. Even to Coach McCarthy, who you guys like to get on, and I have. The Fred Flintstone comments and everything. You see a different side of him. And I like what I see out of this team so far. That could all implode the next 4 weeks or the first or second game of the playoffs. That could all change. It's all conjecture up to this point on my side and your side. But this is why we have these conversations. That's why we play the games. Back it up. Binge podcast. Welcome, guys. Good to have you with us today. Please send me an invite to follow your show. I'd like to do that, and I do hope you'll do the same for TGI Sports Talk. Go to my Facebook page and like and follow the show, and hopefully share it with your people. I will do the same for you, and the same on YouTube. Ring the bell, as Dan Harris used to say. I'm welcoming you guys to the show. As Shula fan, so we're Miami fans here. Trying to read the logo. I can't quite read it. I guess it's the Binge podcast. I can't quite read the logo, but looks cool. As Shula fan, hope he doesn't get the record. I can understand that. And again, and it's funny. And I don't have a name I'll call you Binge because I don't have a name to go with it. Feel free to share it. Again, I hope you will send me either in Messenger or whatever. Send me a link to your page. I'd like to like and follow. I like to follow all the podcasts out there and contribute what I can, sharing the show with my people and whatnot. And I hope you will do the same. Miami fans are famous for being very protective of their records, right? The undefeated season, the guys that are left on that team anyway always get together and crack a bottle of champagne when the last undefeated team loses. Took them with my team. It took them a long time. They couldn't do it until January, but I'm sure they're protective of this record as well. Well deserved. Don Shula is a great coach for a long time, and Bill Belichick has been a great coach for a long time as well. I think they're both deserving of this record, and I can understand why you don't want your guy to lose it. I'm sure you have no love loss for Bill Belichick either. Let me ask you this. Binge, you can give me a name if you like. If it wasn't Bill Belichick, would you feel differently? If it was, I don't know, Sean Payton, if it was, I'm trying to think of other more well-liked coaches. Nobody's close, obviously, and probably nobody's going to get close. But it was somebody else, wasn't in your division, wasn't a hated rival like obviously Belichick has become. Would you feel differently? Chargers for Bill, to me, it's a ready-made situation for Bill. There's a franchise quarterback in place. As I said about the Giants, I don't think he's going to the Giants, no matter what my comments were about Daniel Jones and franchise quarterback or not. There's a franchise quarterback in place. There's some talent on both sides of the football. Why this team is 5-9 or whatever their record is now is beyond me. It's coaching in my mind. There could be some bad apples, obviously, on the team, but there's a lot of talent on both sides of that offense, and some tweaks need to be made, obviously. And I don't think Bill needs to go and be a coach and a GM, though. He needs a GM. At this point, he has not done a good job of filling out the roster and shopping for the groceries, if you will. I don't think the game has passed him by. You give him the right personnel, and he is going to be a successful NFL coach again. That's my mind. He hasn't given himself the right personnel. I did, and I do. Dak sucks, yeah. Again, Kenny, I'm not going to win this argument, so I'm not going to spend much more time on it. But again, one of them is the team that a lot of people want to say is the best team in the NFC or the NFL. You can only play the teams on your record. You know, that fat bastard who coached the Giants and the Patriots and the Jets and the Cowboys said you are what your record says you are. That's simple. You can only play the teams in front of you. So this argument will now go nowhere until they go to the playoffs and win some games or lose some games. They lose some games, I'm wrong and you're right. Titans, I thought it was one of them. So I'll ask you about this, Chad. But maybe we're spending a lot of time. Guys, by the way, we don't have to stay in the NFL. You got college football, MLB, Soto, Ohtani, Rangers. I like this Lee kid, by the way. College basketball with Jon Howard, the NBA with Draymond. You want to talk about any of that? I'm okay. We'll talk about whatever you want today. NFL is dominating, and I'm okay with that. Chad Collins, question for you. I put this to, I don't know, Chad. I think you follow Robert Butler in the Sports Scope. I asked Robert this. He's a Titans fan. I said, and I'm more excited about this comment every day. I said before last year's draft that Will Levis eventually would be the best quarter. I did say, let me back up. I did say he was the most ready to play now of all of them. And I said when it's all said and done, he would be the best quarterback in this class. He would be better than Stroud. He would be better than Murray. He would be better than Richardson. Colts should have gone that direction, not drafted Richardson. But Levis fell way back. And I thought the Titans got a steal. The question is, are you happy and are you excited? I got to check this text because something was weird in there. Hang on. No, I'm not going to do that. I can't get into my phone to check my text. Anyway, where was I? Oh, Will Levis. I want your opinion. Is he the future? And are you happy with what he's done so far? This guy, I think you saw what he's capable of in the first game he played in this comeback against Miami, which he was instrumental in. Now he hasn't played great. He's a rookie quarterback. He's going to have his ups and downs. I'm still impressed with this guy. And I stand by my comments that he will be the best quarterback come out of last year's draft. Horns up. Got a while for the horns to go up yet. Since you propped open the college football door for me, it's always open for you, Jen. This is a stream of consciousness. On Sundays, we talk about everything. So we'll jump all over the board. The more I think about it, the more I'm convinced that Michigan has no one that can block Dallas Turner. Okay. And I think you might be right. The Michigan offense has been against better teams, has been a bit more pedestrians than some of these other teams. I think who are they playing? They're playing Alabama, right? I think they'll lose to Alabama. Alabama's offense is not, as prolific even as Ohio. Well, maybe it's as good as Ohio State's now. Milroe played very well the rest of the year. I don't think Michigan's going to be able to run the football the way they have recently. So I agree with your comments a bit. I do think J.J. McCarthy is going to be leaned on much heavier than he has been this last quarter of the season. And I think he's going to have to play well for them to beat. I think J.J. McCarthy is going to have a big game for them to beat Alabama. With that said, I have predicted Alabama will beat Michigan and play Washington in the championship game and lose to Washington in the championship game. John, when he was a kid, see, I can't think back that far. My mom used to buy me and my brother animal crackers in the hopes that maybe we are the same age, John. We would stay out of the Christmas cookies. It never worked. It hasn't worked for me for 64 years, John. So there's other stuff. I don't have any animal crackers. Maybe I should have my wife buy me some animal crackers. Because the problem is, though, I'll finish the animal crackers and I'll go right to the frozen cookies. I love the Christmas cookies right out of the freezer. I don't know what's wrong with me. Heavy rain and strong winds in Buffalo. I think that bodes well for the Dallas Cowboys in the running game there. Now, Buffalo's run the ball better than people think, by the way. Cook's had a pretty good year. Doesn't score a lot of touchdowns because Josh Allen scores those touchdowns. But I think that kind of bodes well for the Cowboys today. And just to throw out a baseball topic, I'll throw out a couple other topics in case you guys want to get into them here in the next 30 minutes because we haven't gotten anywhere in baseball. I think the Soto trade for the Yankees is a big mistake, having to play Judge in center field every day. Soto, marginal defensive player at best. Verdugo, better, but he's got to play the other corner. And Stanton has got a roadblock at DH. So, I've weakened right field. I've weakened center field. Judge is fine center fielder, but he's better right fielder. Plus, I put more injury risk on Judge. So I think the Yankees have made a big mistake here. Plus, with what they gave up, we needed Michael King for the starting rotation. Thorpe is one of the best players in the minor league system. I would have gone with a cheaper option, and the league kid from Korea that the Giants signed who's a really good player, great contact player, which the Yankees need. He puts a bat on the ball, who plays decent defense, can play center field every day. Would have been a much cheaper option, and you'd have more money to go after. They're going to make another horrible pitching signing because there's no pitching behind Cole and maybe Clark Schmidt that we can trust. Nestor might be back healthy and whatnot. I just want to throw this topic out there in case anybody wants to chat about it. And so we got pitching rotation issues and we got bullpen issues. We gave too much in this trade. Plus, we got to sign him or he's a one-year rental. And I think the team, other than offensively, because he's a left-handed bat, which the Yankees in a left-handed hitting ballpark, which the Yankees badly needed. But I think there's too much ifs and everything else. So I thought I'd just throw that out there. Mark says Uncle Rico is a character from Napoleon Dynamite. I never saw Napoleon Dynamite. You could throw the ball over mountains. Hilarious. I gotta watch the movie and find out. And is Uncle Rico still young enough to? I'm guessing it, but that movie is fairly old. I think he won't be eligible to play football anymore or able. Kenny Griffith's like Mac and Jack show. You like the Mac and Jack show? They make me feel. They make me feel you. What the hell does that mean? Don't be feeling me. What does that mean? Barbers are the Cowboys of the AFC. You're killing me, man. You're killing me, Kenny. Who are the Barbers? Chargers, right? No, there's a big difference if we're talking about the Chargers, by the way. And I think you are. Oh, you're killing me today. If you're talking about the Chargers, there's a huge difference. The Cowboys are 10-3. The Chargers are 5-9. Hello, can we see that? Now they have been the last couple of years. Staley blew a chance to get to the playoffs 2 years ago in game 17 when all he needed was a tie. And the dumbass, didn't even know enough to frickin' settle for a tie. And then last year he blows a 27-point lead or whatever against the Jacksonville Jaguars. So anyway, this year they're not the same. They're 5-9 and 10-3. There you go. I knew you could correct yourself, Kenny. Rock Roberts, as a Dolphin fan, I think we got something from the binge guys here after this. As a Dolphin fan, yes, you do feel differently, at least to agree. Respect is still there, though. Well, that's good, and that there should be respect there. So you would feel differently, though, if it was somebody else. I guess that's what you're saying, and hopefully we'll see what the binge guys have to say here. But you'd feel differently if it was somebody else chasing Shula's record and not BB. All right, you actually like Bill. I just want Coach Shula to keep the record. There you go. That's fair enough. I would want my coach to keep the record. I don't think this record gets broken, by the way. I think this is it. I mean, can you see the way coaching is today and the way the game is today? And maybe it'll change because these things do swing around. But do we see coaches coaching long enough, 20, 30 years to be able to win 300 games, 300 plus games? I'm not sure we're going to see anybody. This might be the last chance for this record ever to be broken. So you just like to see Coach Shula keep the record because he was your guy and embodies the NFL. I agree with all of that. Got you subbed. Cool. I agree with all that. I mean, again, he's your guy, and you should root for your guy. Stay true to your school. I always say that. And he does embody the NFL. Don Shula, I mean, growing up, again, I'm 6. I'll be in my 64th year in a few weeks right here when we hit 2024. Only 63, but when we turn that corner, I start to say 64. Because I'm in my 64th year, I will be. But growing up, he was the embodiment of the NFL. I grew up with the Shulas and the Maddens and the Landrys. And those guys were icons. We don't see that today, right? We're not going to see guys coach. Well, Madden didn't coach that long, 10, 11 years. But the rest of them, no, Chuck Noll I left out. These guys coached 20 plus years, all of them, or longer. MMA. Hey, Nick Bodkins, how are you, buddy? You bring up the MMA. You're going to have to carry the conversation, though. That's all I can say. Maybe there's somebody else in here who can help with that. Never been a big MMA guy. I get into boxing once in a while, but it's hard for me to follow the boxers even anymore. We'll leave that to Jack Hirsch. But welcome, Nick. Nick is one of the great shows, by the way, that I talk about on Let's Talk Sports. And get over there if you haven't. We're live on Let's Talk Sports YouTube with all our shows. But there's some great talent over there, and Nick is certainly one of them. Tanner's doing a great job over there, trying to pick up the, which is a very tough job, obviously, picking up the mantle for our own Dan Harris, and he's doing a great job. Scott Colby does a great job over there. Alan Perales does a great job over there. Rob Logan, who, by the way, again, I said at the top of the show, and I'll say it again, our thoughts and prayers are with him and his family as he goes through a serious health crisis. I was shocked to see this last night when I started scrolling through Facebook a little bit, that he, because Rob looks to be, again, much younger than me and much younger than my brother when the same thing happened to him, and in pretty good shape. And he had a really bad heart attack, and it does appear that hopefully he'll be okay. But our thoughts and prayers are with him, his wife Nicole, and his kids. I like Rob a lot. So he's one of the great guys over there. Scott Colby, if I didn't mention Scott, Johnny Cruz, a lot of great guys over there. I'm missing guys, and I apologize. Nick, you want to type them all out, I'll certainly put it up on the screen. I know I always miss guys, but Nick does a great show over there. And congratulations with your Green Bay team playing well. I'm going to be betting them today, so sorry. Chad Lewis. What's going on with Keith today? Chad Collins. I'm excited about Levis. Good. Originally had your doubts. A lot of people did, man. I was out on an island, I swear to God, with Will Levis. I said he should have been a top 5 pick. Love his makeup. God, there's not a lot of people who watch for the right things and the makeup of guys. I said Richardson, and Richardson might still come back and be a capable NFL quarterback. I saw nothing except athleticism out of him to think he would be an NFL quarterback of any stature. And injuries would be a problem, and they showed to be already. And I thought C.J. Stroud, well, again, he's played really well this year, and hopefully that continues. I don't root against guys to fail. I think Kyler Murray's got his downside with his size and injury bugaboos. I thought Will Levis would be the best of this bunch, and I still do. And everybody now that I talk to that's a Titans fan is starting to come around, as you are, Chad. So thank you for that. Alabama 45, Michigan 12. Kenny, I don't know if it'll be that big, but I think Alabama will handle them. I think Michigan's defense is better than giving up 45 to an Alabama offense that is not your typical Alabama offense, if you will. Milroe's played great here since midseason or just before and gotten better every week, but the wideouts are still a little iffy. They'll give up some points, I think, because the secondary's got some question marks as well. But I think Alabama's good enough to win this game. I would call this more in the 26 to 15 area. I've come up with some weird numbers for scores today. Dallas will need hand warmers. I think you got a period. We're having trouble with a punctuation now. The Perth education really comes through on this show. If you haven't watched before, Chad, John, and well, John, you've seen enough, I guess, on the college football show. Maybe you have, Chad, Nick. The Perth education really comes through on this show with myself and Kenny and Rick and some others. So we do our best to show you, no child was ever left behind at Perth, long before that was a thing. John, I do think Washington's going to win it all, and it's just a gut feeling. I think the offense is good enough. The defense, I don't need to check with Vegas. I mean, Vegas made them a 9.5-point underdog against Oregon, right? Why would I check with Vegas? Vegas, you know what Vegas odds are, John? Do you understand what Vegas is about? Vegas is about getting as much money bet on this side as this side. The odds don't really mean they think this team will win by this much money or these many points. Now, it's the same thing with the money lines. Money lines are designed to get as much money bet both ways because all they want is the VIG because there's so much money bet. So I'm not checking with I'm not checking with Vegas to figure out who I think is going to win the game. And I have my own reasons. I like when John DeLong's a very good follower of the show, too. He and I go back and forth like this on the college football show a lot. And I love that. I've told him that. I love it. And I love his opinion. He's got great opinions. I don't agree with all of them. To tell me Washington's got no shot is you haven't watched them play. I know because I don't think you watch enough of teams outside the SEC. We've had this conversation before. There's a lot of good football being played around the country. In fact, the Pac-12, there's a lot of good football being played this year. Washington has got a really good offense. They got a good quarterback and they've got wide receivers who just go up and get the ball, can bail him out of trouble at any point in time. They're going to score points. Their defense has been suspect, but it's made enough big plays, and it did it twice in 2 Oregon games, and Oregon's a really good football team, which I know you probably don't believe that either, John. But they are. I think Washington's well coached, and I just feel, again, this is more of a gut feeling, and based on what I've seen through the course of the year, they have found a way to win in tough situations. Again, they struggle against some teams they shouldn't have. I get it. The teams do get bored. So an Alabama team struggle against South Florida. I'm not holding against them. Vegas has nothing to do with it. No underdog has ever won. Is that what you're telling me? Dogs have no chance. Don't remember Miami being a 2-touchdown underdog to a powerhouse Nebraska team in 81 or 2, whatever year that was, with Howard Schnellenberger. You don't remember that? Vegas said they had no chance to win the game. You don't remember the Patriots being a 14-point underdog to the Rams in 2001 season, 2002 Super Bowl? Vegas said they had no chance to win. Go to Vegas. Hopkins is an extreme plus for Levis. I agree. And, one thing I like is from what I've read too, Levis and Hopkins have had a couple of disagreements, but Hopkins loves the fact that this kid comes right back at him. And he loves his makeup. The kid's tough, man, and he's confident. Not cocky, he's confident. And he's got talent to back it up. Love him. What do you got here, John? John's killing me. I think we're clearly on a Texas-Bama rematch with Bama winning another natty. It's possible. You're going to think that, though, John, as you're predisposed to pick the SEC team anytime, regardless of what Vegas says. I guarantee you Vegas isn't saying Alabama's a favorite. I'm sure Michigan is. I don't know. Let's find out, shall we? Since John's bringing it up, and I know I probably just saw these numbers, NCAA college football odds to win championship. We haven't got to a lot of stuff today, but I'm okay. This has been a great show today. Here we go. Michigan's, this is from December 8th. Ah, shit. I use my work computer for this. Probably going to get blocked from all this I am. Yeah. All right. Well, whatever. Michigan's favored. I can tell by the headline. Can I get into Odd Shark? Probably can't get into any of these. Nah, I can't. No worries. I'm going to guarantee you that Michigan's favored again. And that shows you right there again what these odds mean. They're just trying to get money bet on both sides of the action. They want action on both sides of the bet. And I don't disagree. And I told John the other night, I have a big problem with FSU getting screwed and left out of this championship, which we won't get into in our last 15 minutes. But I have no problem with this field. It's a good field, and I think a very competitive field. I don't think you're going to see a blowout in any of these games. I think Texas and Washington is going to be an exciting game. If I bet the game, I'm liable to bet the over because I think this game will be like a track meet. Japanese players all make contact. They play the game like it's supposed to be. I agree 100%. He's Korean, by the way, Kenny, not Japanese. Which does make a difference to Koreans and Japanese, if not to us. But I tell you, he's a really nice player. He's a 5-tool guy. He's got a little speed. He's got a little pop. And that's the guy the Yankees should have grabbed. A lot less money. I mean, he signed for, I think, a 4-year contract for, it's not like it's peanuts. I mean, he's getting paid $25 million a year, I think. But I really think he would have fit what this team needs more than Juan Soto. Great offensive player, but he doesn't bring in. Again, the problem with this team throughout the last several years has been the way they fundamentally approach the game and play the game. The game's fundamentals, the way they feel, the way they run the bases, the way they strike out too much. Soto doesn't help any of that, except offensively, they'll probably score some more runs. The binge boys are all over the place. You love it. Would. That's a good line. Listen, if I was a Yankee hater, man, I would love the Yankees' commitment to Stanton as well. I've said for a long time now, I don't care what his contract is. This is the Yankees, and we can afford to eat it. Get him somewhere. Somebody will take a chance on his bat, eat the remainder or the majority of his contract, and let's move on. I'm okay. Actually, if it wasn't for Stanton being here, I might be okay with the Soto acquisition because now I've got some flexibility. I can DH him. I can play Judge in right field. Maybe play Grisham, who's a really good center fielder and has some offensive potential. Hasn't really shown it except for in flashes. But we'd be a better fundamental team with a Verdugo, Grisham, and Judge alignment in the outfield for most of the time, and Soto in DH. But we don't have that possibility. And again, to your point there, binges, I would agree. If I didn't like the Yankees, man, and as a team in the same division, you should love our commitment to that stiff. Young. I'm not sure what went there. I'm not sure where that goes. One of the guys on the Mac and Jack show kind of looks like a junior soprano. That's Jack. He does look like Uncle Junior a little bit. That's a good point. I've been trying to figure out, by the way, and I've talked about this before. After watching Tommy DeVito's agent, all night long till I wanted to throw up. I guess it was Monday night. With his father, I'm trying to figure out what character he played on The Sopranos. He's kind of a mix between a Sopranos character and Father Guido Sarducci, for those of you old enough to remember that character. Bum Phillips, another great name from the 70s and 80s. Bum Phillips, good catch there, CA, down there in Texas. Obviously, probably a old Oiler fan. That's a great point. So Tomlin's been coaching quite a while in Pittsburgh, right? He's got 170 wins. That's halfway. Right, Chad? Halfway. Nobody breaks this record. I mean, think about it. If he averaged 10 wins a year, He'd have to coach another 17 years. Now, he's young enough to probably do it, but he's not gonna. It's not going to happen. My point is, these guys, like everybody else, they make so much money, they're not going to coach 20, 25, 30 years. Plus, the game, I think, just got to burn these guys out the way it is today. Lombardi, Stram, Allen, Noel, you go back a little bit. Allen, I count in the 70s. Yeah, Lombardi's a little. I didn't see a lot of Lombardi as. You're a little older than me, Kenny. You probably remember Lombardi coaching more than I do. I remember more from NFL films. Stram, I certainly remember, and Allen with the Redskins mostly, but made his bones with the Rams. And Hank Stram was just a joy to watch coach. He's a great coach at the time, and another guy who kind of faded away from memory, right? Wow. I got Bama 30, the cheating bastards, otherwise known as Michigan 13. I can see that score, I guess. Probably not 45-12 or whatever Kenny had up there. But John, you got to really stop. Don't sugarcoat how you feel, man. Vegas doesn't really miss that often on things like this. Well, actually, they do. But again, they're not trying to pick winners, right? The odds aren't. Yes, they set the odds thinking this team will win. I get that, but they also set a line because they want as much money bet on the other side as the winning side. They don't want to pay. Kenny wants Bama and Texas in the championship, as John DeLong does, then watch Alabama kill them to really put Florida State in the limelight. I don't like Alabama, just a great organization. Well, I mean, it's a tremendous football program. They've got the greatest football coach of all time. And I've said many times this year, this is the greatest coaching job that Nick Saban has ever done. Ever. And he is the greatest college football coach of all time. In my mind, there's no question about that. Somebody will probably question it, but that's fine. Can Washington play defense? No, they can't. But they play enough defense in big moments. They find a way to come up with a big play here and there. And I think they'll come up with enough big plays. I think they're just going to outscore Texas. I'm not crazy about Texas's defense. You watch them play Oklahoma? And some of the teams they struggled with during the middle part of their season, TCU, 26 points they give up in the second half. Bunch of points to Kansas State at home. Had to win in overtime. They'll give up points. They're not going to score points either. And I think it'll be a shootout, and I think Washington will score more points. I think that will come up to be a bigger problem. I think they'll beat Alabama in a championship game because they've got a better offense. And Alabama's defense, as good as Coach Saban has done coaching this team up, and again, you'll tell me it's the position coaches, and I get it, but that comes from the head coach. He hired them, and he coached them up. I think I do think that Washington will find a way. Doesn't mean they will. I'm telling you that Washington's the worst team of the four. That's fine. You can have that opinion. I think Michigan is myself. I'd put Washington 1, and I would put Texas 2. I think now I'd put Alabama 2 at this point. Alabama 2. They're not as far apart, all these teams, as you want to think, John. I know, again, you have a bias against anything outside of the SEC. I know that. So I'm sure Texas and Alabama, because Texas will be an SEC team next year. I mean, you have to admit that. It comes out in every conversation that we have. You have a strong bias towards the SEC. That's fine. I understand it. Good thing I only took one English class in college. Just know how to grow grass. Kenny, don't be spreading rumors that us crook guys made it to college. Jesus. I'm predisposed to make my picks based on reality. I'm not buying that, by the way. But you're entitled to think that, for sure. I got 2 Bills on Bama plus 1. Against Michigan, I'm guessing. I'm going to make that same bet, by the way. How many more 9-win seasons would it take to get Tomlin to get to 300? Well, there you go, 9 wins, right? About 20. Well, over 300. He's got to get to 300 plus, remember. So we only got a few minutes left here. Let me finish up these comments and we'll. John, you made me roll out of the chair. John is good at that. I love John DeLong stuff. Vegas puts shit out so they can make money. Well, that's their job. I mean, they're a casino. They're not there to just pay out money. They're there to, make money. And the way they make money is by setting lines that gets money bet on both sides. That's where they make their money. They don't want a big winner on either side. Love the Sopranos reference as an Italian from Jersey. No offense meant. If I offended anybody, I don't care. I tend to offend a lot of people on these shows, Binge. Not purposely. It's just who I am. I have very strong opinions, and they are, but they're funny. See, to me, funny's funny, and I thought it was a good reference, right? I mean, I don't know how old you are. We probably don't get the Father Guido Sarducci comment. I know that Kenny and Rick do. Maybe John DeLon does. I'm not sure how old John is yet, but all right, we're getting close to wrapping it up. We spent a lot of time, man, on a lot of stuff. We didn't even get to the new rules, by the way, in football, which we can't start now because we only got a couple of minutes left. But the new rules in football where you're not going to be able to tackle anybody at all because you can only hit them about this here and just below their waist about that much too. The only place you can hit guys. So, but I want to thank everybody for tuning in today. Chad and John and Kenny and Rick, Anthony, Nick, who did I miss? Dave, Guyette. I probably missed a couple guys. I apologize. We had great participation today. Kenny lived in a little town where the Sopranos was filmed. Sweet. Great trail. Thanks you. I appreciate and I appreciate that. Listen, I'm very opinionated and very passionate about what I think. I don't for a minute think I'm always right. I know John DeLon's always wrong, but I'm kidding. But I appreciate your input and contributions to the show too, Chad. I'm glad you've found us and you kind of stuck with us, and John too. I love John DeLon since he found our show. He's 47, and you kind of remember Father Guido, big character on Saturday Night Live, and it's pretty funny stuff back in the day. Probably doesn't hold up very well today, but anyway, Chad, I appreciate your comments, and John knows that he and I have a very good, well, not always good nature. We get a little heated sometimes during a college football huddle, but we are where we are. Kenny thinks it's a good rule because you won't need all these monsters. You won't need freaking defensive players. Just put flags on the guys and we're done. Oh, God. Guys, what a tremendous show. Great job today. I want to thank everybody for their contributions. I love it. Keep in mind real quick, College Football Huddle, not live Wednesday because of Christmas party I've got to get to. We will be live with that show Saturday morning at 9 a.m. on all the affiliates. Catch us next Friday with the Are You Serious and Major League Baseball update. And, of course, next Sunday, New Year's Eve, Christmas Eve, and New Year's Eve. We'll be live with the Stream of Consciousness. No days off for that. Guys, we'll have a great weekend. Enjoy the football today. Thank you. Have a great Sunday.